Most people would walk right past this penny without a second thought. But what if I told you that a simple 1975 penny sitting in a jar, a drawer, or an old wallet could quietly hold a story that collectors still talk about today, and in rare cases, be worth far more than 1 cent? The 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of those coins that feels ordinary at first glance, yet becomes more fascinating the deeper you look. This coin was made during a time of major change in America, and it carries small details that connect everyday life, history, and the world of coin collecting in a very personal way. This penny features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front. If you live in the United States, you have probably held dozens of similar pennies in your hand. But the year 1975 places this coin in a unique moment in American history, just after the nation celebrated its bicentennial buildup and during a period of economic uncertainty, rising inflation, and big changes in how money was viewed. To understand why the 1975 no-mint mark penny exists, we need to step back into the mid-1970s. The United States was recovering from the Vietnam War, dealing with oil shortages, and facing inflation that made everyday items more expensive. Pennies were still an important part of daily transactions, used in grocery stores, gas stations, and vending machines. Because of this demand, the United States needed to produce enormous quantities of 1-cent coins. The 1975 penny was struck primarily at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, pennies made in Philadelphia did not include a mint mark. That is why you see no letter under the date on this coin. This simple absence of a mint mark is what gives the coin its name and sets it apart from pennies made in Denver or San Francisco in 1975 alone. Hundreds of millions of pennies were produced to keep up with circulation needs. These coins were never meant to be rare, and they were never meant to be saved. They were made to be spent, handled, dropped, scratched, and forgotten. That everyday purpose is exactly what makes surviving high-quality examples so interesting today. The front of the coin shows Lincoln's right-facing portrait, a design that had already been used for decades by 1975. His calm expression, sharp profile, and strong jawline were meant to symbolize honesty, unity, and strength. Above his head is the word liberty, and behind him is the familiar phrase, "In God we trust." Below the date, the absence of a mint mark quietly signals its Philadelphia origin. On the back of the coin, you will find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. Inside the memorial, if you look closely enough, you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln, making this one of the few U.S. coins to show the same person on both sides. This reverse design remained on pennies for decades and is deeply nostalgic for many collectors. The metal composition of the 1975 penny is another important detail. It is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a composition that would soon change in the early 1980s. Because copper prices later increased, these older pennies gained attention simply because of the metal they contain. For collectors, the solid copper feel of a 1975 penny adds to its appeal. So why would a common penny like this ever be valuable? The answer lies in condition, rarity within quality, and minting errors. While millions were made, most were heavily circulated. Finding one today with sharp details, bright original color, and no major wear is far more difficult than it sounds. Uncirculated examples, especially those with strong luster and clean surfaces, can attract serious interest from collectors. Pennies that look almost exactly as they did the day they left the mint are increasingly hard to find because few people thought to save them at the time. Even more exciting are error coins. Some 1975 no-mint mark pennies were struck with mistakes during the minting process. These errors can include off-center strikes, doubled lettering, weak strikes, clipped planchets, or unusual surface defects. While not every error is valuable, certain dramatic or clearly visible errors can raise a penny's value significantly. There have been auction listings where high-grade 1975 no-mint mark pennies sold for many times their face value. Coins graded in top condition by professional grading services have reached prices that surprise casual collectors. Error examples, especially those that are visually obvious and well-preserved, can sell for hundreds of dollars or more depending on the type and severity of the mistake. Collectors also pay close attention to color. Copper pennies are often described as red, red-brown, or brown. A fully red 1975 penny, meaning it retains most of its original mint color, is far more desirable than one that has darkened over time. This color difference alone can mean a big jump in value. Identifying a genuine 1975 no mint mark penny is fairly simple, but there are still things to watch out for. First, check the date carefully. Make sure the numbers are clear and evenly spaced. Look under the date to confirm there is no mint mark. If you see a D or an S, it is not the Philadelphia version. Next, examine the weight and feel. A genuine copper penny from 1975 should feel solid and slightly heavier than modern zinc pennies. The edges should show a consistent copper color without signs of plating or peeling. Be cautious of altered coins. Some people attempt to remove mint marks from other pennies to make them appear more valuable. Under magnification, tampering often leaves scratches, uneven surfaces, or unnatural textures where the mint mark once was. One fun and surprising detail about the 1975 penny is how few people noticed it at the time. While the country was preparing for its bicentennial celebrations in 1976, coins dated 1975 quietly circulated without any special designs or attention. This makes them a kind of calm before the storm in U.S. coin history. Another interesting fact is that the Lincoln Memorial design would eventually be replaced decades later. This makes coins like the 1975 penny part of a long, completed chapter in American coinage that newer generations may never fully experience in circulation. Collectors love the 1975 no mint mark penny today because it represents accessibility. You do not need to be wealthy to start searching for one. You might already own it. That sense of discovery is powerful. It turns everyday objects into historical artifacts and makes collecting feel personal and exciting. For many collectors, this penny is a reminder that value is not always obvious. Sometimes it is hidden in condition, detail, and story rather than rarity alone. The idea that a coin once used to buy candy or pay sales tax could later be carefully examined, graded, and preserved is deeply appealing. The 1975 no mint mark Lincoln penny also connects generations. Older Americans remember using these coins daily, while younger collectors see them as relics from a time before digital payments and contactless cards. That shared connection keeps interest alive as you look through your change or an old jar of pennies. Remember that history does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from a small copper coin, dated 1975, with no mint mark and a quiet story to tell. And the next time you spot a penny that looks ordinary, take a closer look. Because somewhere out there, a simple 1-cent coin might be waiting to surprise you. Just like the 1975 no mint mark Lincoln penny continues to surprise collectors today. What if I told you that a penny you've probably ignored your entire life could still hold a hidden story, quiet value, and a surprising place in American history? Today, we're looking at a coin that almost everyone has seen but very few truly understand. The 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny. This coin is officially known as the 1978 Lincoln Memorial Cent, a 1-cent coin that was struck without a mint mark, meaning it was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Brown or reddish copper color, familiar portrait, simple design. But behind that everyday appearance is a fascinating snapshot of the United States at the end of the 1970s, a time of major economic change, rising inflation, and important transitions in American coinage. To understand this penny, we need to go back to the year 1978. America was coming out of a difficult decade. Inflation was high, gas prices had shocked the nation, and the cost of producing coins was becoming a serious concern for the government. Yet the Lincoln cent remained one of the most heavily produced coins in U.S. history. Millions were needed for everyday commerce, and the Philadelphia facility of the United States Mint worked nonstop to meet demand. The design of the penny in 1978 was already familiar to Americans. The front features the profile of Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. This made the Lincoln cent the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By 1978, this portrait had been in continuous use for nearly 70 years, making it one of the most recognizable images in American money. On the reverse side, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, which had replaced the earlier wheat ears design in 1959. Look closely, and you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial. That detail alone makes this design unique in U.S. coinage history, because it shows the same person on both sides of the coin. Now let's talk about what the 1978 penny is made of, because this is where history and economics quietly meet. In 1978, pennies were still composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This was just a few years before the U.S. Mint switched to the copper-plated zinc composition we know today. As a result, the 1978 no-mint mark penny belongs to the final generation of mostly copper Lincoln cents. That gives it an added layer of interest for collectors who value older metal compositions. But if millions were made, why would anyone care about this coin today? The answer lies in condition, errors, and survival. While billions of pennies were produced in the 1970s, very few have survived in perfect or near-perfect condition. Most were heavily used, scratched, discolored, or damaged over decades of circulation. Finding a 1978 no-mint mark penny that looks almost brand new is far more difficult than most people realize. Collectors grade coins on a scale that measures wear, detail, and surface quality. A worn 1978 penny might be worth only face value. But a sharply struck example with full details, original luster, and no damage can be worth significantly more. Coins that were carefully saved, or never entered circulation at all, are the ones that attract attention today. Errors add another layer of excitement. Some 1978 no-mint mark pennies were struck with mistakes at the mint. These errors were not intentional, but they slipped through quality control and entered circulation. Examples include off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing, weak strikes that leave certain details faint, or double die errors where parts of the lettering or date appear doubled to the naked eye. One of the most interesting things about error coins is that they turn a common penny into something truly unique. No two errors are exactly alike. That individuality is what drives collector demand and auction prices. A dramatic error on a 1978 penny can sell for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on its appearance and condition. So what do real prices look like? In circulated condition, a normal 1978 no-mint mark penny usually sells for a few cents to $1. But in high-grade, uncirculated condition, especially those certified by professional grading services, prices can climb into the double digits. Some top-graded examples have sold at auction for well over $100. Error coins, especially well-documented double dies or major striking mistakes, have sold for even more. It's important to understand that value is not just about age. A coin from 1978 is not ancient, but rarity is created by survival, condition, and uniqueness. Millions were made, but very few were preserved perfectly. That difference is what collectors pay for. If you're wondering how to tell if your 1978 penny is real, the process is actually simple. Start by checking the date. It should read 1978. Then look just below the date on the front of the coin. If there is no letter like D or S, it means the coin was struck in Philadelphia. That's what no mint mark refers to. Next, examine the weight. A genuine 1978 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams because of its copper composition. A coin that is significantly lighter or heavier may be damaged or altered. Also look closely at the details. Lincoln's hair, the lettering, and the memorial lines should be clear and sharp on well-preserved examples. Counterfeit pennies are rare, but altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify dates or add fake errors. Under magnification, these alterations usually become obvious. Tool marks, uneven surfaces, or unnatural shapes are warning signs. When in doubt, serious collectors rely on professional grading services to authenticate and encapsulate valuable coins. There are also some fun and surprising facts about the 1978 penny that most people don't know. For example, the copper in this coin is worth more than its face value, based purely on metal content. That fact played a major role in the decision to change the penny's composition just a few years later. The government realized it was costing more than 1 cent to produce a 1-cent coin. Another interesting detail is that pennies from this era often show strong strike quality compared to later zinc cents. Many collectors prefer the look and feel of pre-1982 copper pennies because they have richer color, better sound when dropped, and a sense of durability that modern cents lack. Collectors today love the 1978 no-mint mark penny not because it's rare in the traditional sense, but because it represents the end of an era. It is one of the last Lincoln cents made primarily of copper, struck during a time when American manufacturing and currency were on the brink of major change. It's a coin that bridges the gap between classic and modern U.S. coinage. For new collectors, This penny is an accessible entry point into the hobby. It's easy to find, affordable to collect in different conditions, and full of learning opportunities. For experienced collectors, high-grade examples and rare errors offer a real challenge and a chance to own something special that most people overlook. The beauty of coin collecting is that value isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's quiet, sitting in a jar, a drawer, or an old box, waiting for someone to look closer. The 1978 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is a perfect example of that idea. It reminds us that history doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it whispers from the smallest pieces of our past, so the next time you come across a penny dated 1978, don't dismiss it too quickly. Turn it over, study it, think about where it's been and what it represents. Because even the most ordinary-looking coin can carry an extraordinary story, and sometimes, that story is worth far more than 1 cent. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a penny you've ignored for decades, only to discover it carries a story tied to American history, modern manufacturing, and the quiet passion of collectors. The 1985 D. Lincoln penny is one of those coins that almost everyone has seen, yet very few people have truly looked at. Today, we're going to slow down and take a closer look at this humble coin, because sometimes the most common objects hide the most interesting stories. The coin we're talking about is the 1985 Lincoln 1-cent coin with a D mint mark. That small letter D, just below the date, tells us this penny was made at the Denver Mint. It looks simple, familiar, and almost ordinary. But behind that familiar face is a moment in U.S. history when the country was changing, technology was evolving, and the way pennies were made had already shifted forever. By 1985, the Lincoln penny had already been part of American life for more than 75 years. The face on the coin is, of course, Abraham Lincoln, first placed on the penny in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. That decision marked the first time a real person appeared on a regular U.S. coin, and it completely changed American coin design. By the time 1985 arrived, Lincoln's portrait had become one of the most recognizable images in the country. The year 1985 itself is important. The United States was deep into the modern era. Personal computers were entering homes. The Cold War was still shaping global politics, and everyday Americans were adjusting to a fast-changing world. The penny, however, remained a constant. Millions of people used it daily without giving it a second thought. That's exactly what makes coins from this period so interesting. They quietly witnessed history while passing from hand to hand. The 1985 D penny was produced in massive numbers. The Denver Mint struck billions of pennies that year to keep up with everyday demand. This was not a special commemorative coin or a limited release. It was meant to be used, spent, dropped on sidewalks, and forgotten in couch cushions. And yet, because it was made during a specific stage of penny production, it carries features that tell a larger story point. One of the most important things to understand about the 1985 Lincoln penny is what it's made of. Before 1982, pennies were mostly copper. Rising metal prices made that too expensive, so the U.S. Mint changed the composition. By 1985, pennies were made with a core of zinc coated in a thin layer of copper. This change saved money but also introduced new challenges in quality and durability. Many pennies from this era show bubbling, peeling, or corrosion when the copper coating is damaged. Design-wise, the front of the coin shows Lincoln facing to the right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head. The word "Liberty" appears to the left, and the date, 1985, sits to the right, just above the D mint mark. The design is clean and balanced, created decades earlier by sculptor Victor David Brenner. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, which had replaced the wheat stock design in 1959. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, making this one of the few U.S. coins to show the same person on both sides. Now, you might be wondering, if billions were made, how could this coin possibly be valuable? The answer lies in condition, errors, and collector demand. Most 1985 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. However, a small number stand out. Coins that were never circulated and remain in pristine condition can be worth significantly more to collectors. These are often graded and sealed by professional grading companies in top condition. Especially those graded MS-67 red or higher, a 1985 D penny can sell for tens of dollars. sometimes more, depending on demand. That may not sound life-changing, but for a penny that once bought nothing, it's impressive. The value comes from scarcity at that quality level, not from rarity of the date itself. Errors are another area that sparks excitement. During high-speed production, mistakes happen. Some 1985 D pennies show off-center strikes, weak strikes, or unusual plating issues. A dramatic error can push the value much higher, sometimes into the hundreds of dollars. Collectors love errors because each one tells a story of a split second when the minting process went slightly wrong. Real auction records show that high-grade examples and notable error coins do sell. These aren't rumors or internet myths. Certified coins with strong eye appeal have been sold through major auction houses and collector marketplaces. While most people won't find a fortune in their change jar, the possibility keeps collectors searching. With any collectible, authenticity matters. Fortunately, the 1985 D penny is not heavily counterfeited because its base value is low. Still, it's good to know what to look for. A real coin should weigh about 2.5 grams. The copper color should be consistent unless there is known plating damage. The D mint mark should look natural, not glued or carved. If something looks off, comparing it to another known genuine penny from the same era can help. One surprising detail about this coin is how it reflects a shift in collecting habits. Older collectors often focus on early 1900s coins or silver issues. Younger collectors, however, are increasingly interested in modern coins, especially those they remember from childhood. The 1985 D penny sits right in that space. It's old enough to feel historic, but modern enough to feel familiar. Another fun fact is that many people accidentally damage these pennies while cleaning them. Cleaning a coin, even gently, can destroy its collector value. A shiny cleaned penny is usually worth less than a naturally aged one. This is one of the first lessons new collectors learn, often the hard way. Collectors today appreciate the 1985 D penny not because it's rare, but because it's accessible. Anyone can start looking for one. You don't need expensive equipment or deep technical knowledge. All you need is curiosity and patience. That accessibility is part of what keeps coin collecting alive and growing. As time passes, fewer high-quality examples remain. Pennies are lost, damaged, or melted down. That gradual loss makes surviving top-condition coins more desirable. It's a slow process, but history has shown that even common coins can gain collector interest over decades. The 1985 D Lincoln penny reminds us that value isn't always about age or precious metal. Sometimes it's about condition, story, and the human connection to everyday objects. This coin passed through millions of hands during grocery trips, school lunches, and parking meters. Each one carries invisible stories of the people who used it. So the next time you see a penny dated 1985 with a small d beneath the date, don't dismiss it. Take a moment to really look at it. Notice the details, the color, the feel. Ask yourself where it's been and how it survived this long. In a world that moves fast, this small coin is a quiet reminder that history often hides in plain sight. And that's the real magic of the 1985 D Lincoln penny. It may not make you rich, but it can change the way you see the change in your pocket. Once you start looking closely, you may never look at a penny the same way again. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand that looks completely ordinary, yet might carry a hidden story from America's past. A coin so common that millions of people spent it without a second thought, and yet collectors today still stop and look twice. That coin is the 1990 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny, and once you hear its story, you may never look at your spare change the same way again. The 1990 No Mint Mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States at the start of a new decade. At first glance, it appears just like many other Lincoln pennies you've seen your whole life. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But what makes this coin interesting is not flashy design or gold content. It's the quiet details, the history behind it, and the small differences that collectors have learned to appreciate over time. To understand this coin, we need to go back to 1990. The United States was entering a new era. The Cold War was ending, technology was beginning to change everyday life, and the economy was shifting. In that year, the U.S. government continued producing pennies for daily commerce, just as it had for generations. The penny was still a vital part of cash transactions, used everywhere from grocery stores to vending machines. Millions of Americans handled these coins every single day without ever thinking about where they came from. The 1990 Lincoln penny was produced by the United States Mint, which operates several facilities across the country. Some pennies were struck in Philadelphia, some in Denver, and some in San Francisco for special proof sets. The key detail here is the mint mark. Coins made in Denver carry a small d. Proof coins from San Francisco carry an S. But pennies made in Philadelphia traditionally carry no mint mark at all. That is why this coin is known as the 1990 no mint mark Lincoln penny. The absence of a letter tells you exactly where it was made. Now let's talk about the design because it plays a big role in the story. The front of the coin shows Abraham Lincoln facing right. This design first appeared in 1909, created to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1990, this portrait had already been on the penny for more than 80 years, making it one of the longest-running designs in American coin history. Lincoln's calm expression, sharp profile, and formal appearance give the coin a sense of dignity. Even though it's just 1 cent on the back of the coin, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, which was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial. This makes the Lincoln penny unique because it shows the same person on both sides of the coin. For many collectors, this detail alone adds charm and historical depth to the design. In terms of metal, the 1990 Lincoln penny is not made of solid copper like older pennies. By this time, the mint had already switched to a copper-plated zinc composition. The coin contains mostly zinc, with a thin outer layer of copper. This change was made to reduce production costs as copper prices rose. While this means the coin has very little metal value, it does not reduce its importance to collectors who care more about condition, history, and rarity. So why do people care about a penny that was made in huge numbers? The answer lies in condition, errors, and survival. In 1990, hundreds of millions of no-mint mark pennies were struck in Philadelphia. Most of them were heavily used, scratched, and worn down over the years. Very few survived in perfect or near-perfect condition. Coins that were never circulated, often called mint state coins, are much harder to find today. Collectors pay close attention to small details. On the 1990 no mint mark penny, they examine the sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the date, and the smoothness of the fields, which are the flat areas around the design. Even tiny marks can lower a coin's value. That's why 2 pennies from the same year can be worth very different amounts. Errors are another reason this coin attracts attention. While most 1990 pennies were struck correctly, some have minting mistakes. These can include off-center strikes, doubled letters, weak strikes, or die cracks. A doubled die error, where parts of the lettering or date appear doubled, can significantly increase a coin's value. These errors happened during the manufacturing process and were never meant to leave the mint, yet some slipped into circulation. Now let's talk about value because that's what many people are most curious about. In average circulated condition, a 1990 no mint mark Lincoln penny is usually worth just 1 cent. There's no mystery there. But when you move into higher grades, the story changes. Uncirculated examples can sell for several dollars, especially if they are well preserved with strong detail and original shine. The real excitement comes at the top end of the scale. Some 1990 no mint mark pennies that have been professionally graded in near-perfect condition have sold at auctions for surprising prices. High-grade examples certified by trusted grading services have reached into the hundreds of dollars. While these are rare cases, they show how condition can transform an everyday coin into a collector's treasure. So how can you tell if your penny is real and not altered? First, check the date. It should clearly read 1990. Next, look under the date for a mint mark. If there is no letter at all, that means it was made in Philadelphia. The coin should weigh about 2.5 grams and have a copper color, though some darkening is normal with age. Be cautious of coins that appear altered or polished, as cleaning can reduce value. Another important tip is to avoid common mistakes. Some people assume that no mint mark automatically means rare. That's not true. The value depends on condition and special characteristics, not just the absence of a letter. Others confuse the 1990 penny with proof coins or special editions. Proof coins have a mirror-like finish and sharp details, and they usually carry an S mint mark. A true no mint mark penny will not look like a proof. There are also some fun and surprising facts about this coin. In 1990, pennies were still widely used in everyday transactions. You could buy candy, make exact change, or leave a penny at the cash register without thinking twice. Today, many people debate whether the penny should even continue to exist. That makes coins from this era a snapshot of a time when small change really mattered. Collectors love the 1990 no mint mark Lincoln penny because it represents normal American life. It's not a gold coin or a rare colonial piece. It's a coin that passed through millions of hands, paid for everyday items, and quietly did its job. Finding one today in excellent condition feels like uncovering a small piece of untouched history. Another reason collectors appreciate this coin is accessibility. You don't need a fortune to start looking for valuable examples. You can search through old jars, rolls from the bank, or inherited collections. The thrill comes from the hunt, from examining each coin closely and learning what makes it special as time goes on. Fewer high-quality examples remain. Coins get lost, damaged, or destroyed. This slow disappearance adds to the long-term interest in coins like the 1990 no mint mark penny. While it may never reach the value of America's rarest coins, it holds a steady place in collections focused on modern-era Lincoln cents. So the next time you see a 1990 penny without a mint mark, pause for a moment. Look at Lincoln's face. Look at the memorial on the back. Think about where that coin has been and how many stories it could tell. Sometimes the most ordinary objects carry the most fascinating histories. And that simple penny in your pocket might just be a reminder that history doesn't always shine. Sometimes it hides in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. What if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny, the kind you might ignore in your pocket or drop into a jar, could actually tell a powerful story about American history, hidden errors, and surprising collector value? Today, we're diving into a coin that millions of people have seen but very few truly understand: the 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny. This coin is officially known as the 1991 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, which means it was struck at the main minting facility of the United States. At first glance, it looks just like countless other pennies from the late 20th century. But once you understand where it came from, how it was made, and what collectors search for, this humble coin becomes far more interesting. The Lincoln penny has been part of American life for generations. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By 1991, the Lincoln cent was already a familiar symbol of everyday commerce, used millions of times a day across the country. That year, the United States was changing fast. The Cold War had just ended, technology was accelerating, and American manufacturing was adapting to a new era. In the middle of all this, billions of coins were being produced to keep the economy moving. The 1991 no mint mark penny was struck in Philadelphia. Coins made there traditionally do not carry a mint mark, unlike coins from Denver, which show a D, or San Francisco, which usually show an S. This absence of a letter is exactly what the phrase no mint mark refers to. It does not mean the coin is missing something by accident. It simply means it was produced in Philadelphia, just as intended. Now let's talk about what this penny is made of. By 1991, the Lincoln cent was no longer solid copper like older pennies from before 1982. Instead, it was made of a zinc core with a thin outer layer of copper. This change was introduced to reduce costs as copper prices rose. The result is a coin that still looks copper-colored but is much lighter and less expensive to produce. This detail matters because collectors often compare the weight and sound of pennies when trying to identify errors or unusual varieties. On the front of the coin, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, liberty to the left, and the year 1991 to the right. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, which was used on pennies from 1959 until 2008. Inside the memorial, if you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln, making this one of the few U.S. coins where the same person appears on both sides. So if millions of these coins were made, why do people care about the 1991 no mint mark penny today? The answer lies in condition, errors, and collector demand. While the average circulated example is usually worth only face value, certain versions of this coin can be worth much more. Collectors are not just looking for age. They are looking for perfection, rarity, and mistakes that slipped through quality control point. One of the most desirable versions is a 1991 penny in pristine, uncirculated condition. These coins were never used in everyday transactions. They show sharp details, strong luster, and no signs of wear. When graded by professional services, high-grade examples can sell for surprising prices, especially when they receive top grades like MS-67 or higher. Coins like this often come from old mint sets or rolls that were stored away and forgotten for decades. Then there are error coins, which are where things get truly exciting. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the minting process. In 1991, this could include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, or broad strikes, where the coin spreads out wider than normal. There are also double die errors, where parts of the design appear doubled because the die was misaligned during production. These errors are not common, and when they appear on a popular coin like the Lincoln cent, collectors take notice. Some 1991 no-mint mark pennies with clear doubling on the date or lettering have sold for hundreds of dollars, depending on how strong the doubling is and how well the coin is preserved. Other dramatic errors, such as coins struck on the wrong type of planchet, can bring even higher prices. These are the kinds of coins that turn an ordinary penny into a headline-worthy collectible. Auction records show that while most 1991 pennies trade for just a few cents, exceptional examples tell a very different story. High-grade coins certified by major grading companies have sold for several $100s. Rare error examples have reached even higher amounts, especially when multiple collectors compete for a single piece. This is why checking your change carefully still matters. Identifying a real and valuable 1991 no-mint mark penny starts with careful observation. First, look at the date and confirm it says 1991 with no letter under the date. Then examine the coin's condition. Is the surface smooth and shiny, or dull and worn? Check the details on Lincoln's face and the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Sharp details usually mean higher value. If you suspect an error, compare your coin to a normal penny from the same year. Any obvious differences in alignment, lettering, or thickness could be important. Weight is another useful clue. A standard 1991 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. A significant difference could indicate an error or damage. However, damage is not the same as a mint error, and collectors can tell the difference. This is why professional authentication is so important for coins you believe might be valuable. There are also plenty of myths surrounding this coin. Some people believe that every 1991 no-mint mark penny is rare or worth thousands of dollars. That simply isn't true. Value depends on condition and uniqueness. Still, the excitement comes from the possibility. The idea that a coin you already own could be special is what draws so many people into coin collecting. Here's a fun fact many people don't realize. The Lincoln Memorial design on the penny was chosen to symbolize unity and remembrance during a time when America was reflecting on its past and future. By 1991, that design had been in use for over 30 years, and it had become one of the most recognizable coin designs in the world. Holding a 1991 penny is like holding a small piece of late 20th century America. Collectors today love the 1991 no-mint mark penny because it sits at an interesting crossroads. It's old enough to feel historic, but modern enough that many examples still exist. This makes it accessible to beginners while still offering challenges for advanced collectors who hunt for top-grade and error coins. It's also a reminder that collecting doesn't always start with rare gold or silver. Sometimes it starts with a single penny. As we move further into a digital age where cash is used less and less, physical coins like the 1991 Lincoln penny take on new meaning. They become artifacts of daily life from a different time. Each one has passed through countless hands, witnessed small moments of history, and survived decades of change. So the next time you see a penny dated 1991 with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the details. Think about where it came from and how it was made. You might just be holding a coin that connects you to history, collectors around the world, and a story far bigger than 1 cent. And who knows, the most ordinary-looking penny in your pocket today could be the one that sparks your curiosity tomorrow. Imagine pulling a single penny from your pocket and realizing it might carry a hidden story that most people never notice. A coin so common that millions pass through hands every day, yet one small detail could make it far more interesting than it looks. Today, we're diving into the quiet mystery of the 1992 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance but has layers of history, design, and collector curiosity waiting just beneath the surface. The 1992 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States during a time of change, both in the economy and in everyday life. The letter D on the coin tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the main facilities of the United States Mint. While billions of pennies were made in 1992, each one still carries the weight of history, craftsmanship, and the era it came from. To understand this coin, we need to step back to the early 1990s. In 1992, America was moving through a period of economic adjustment. The country was shifting after the Cold War, technology was beginning to reshape daily life, and inflation was slowly affecting the cost of everyday items. The penny was still widely used for small purchases, change jars, and cash transactions. Because of this, the United States Mint produced huge numbers of 1-cent coins to meet demand. The Denver Mint alone struck billions of pennies that year, including the 1992 D Lincoln. The Lincoln penny itself has a long and proud history. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, it was the first regularly circulating U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By 1992, Lincoln had already been appearing on the penny for more than 80 years. This made the design instantly recognizable to Americans of all ages, from children saving allowance money to adults counting out change at the grocery store. The design of the 1992 D penny follows the familiar Lincoln memorial style. On the front, you see Lincoln's profile, facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1992 to the right. Just below the date is the small but important D Mint mark, showing it was made in Denver. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center, with United States of America and 1 cent surrounding it. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail that many people never noticed. In terms of metal, the 1992 D Lincoln penny is made mostly of zinc with a thin outer coating of copper. This composition began in 1982, when rising copper prices made it too expensive to continue producing solid copper pennies. As a result, the penny became lighter and cheaper to produce, even though it still looked almost the same as earlier versions. This change in metal is important to collectors because it helps identify the era a penny comes from and explains why modern pennies feel slightly different in the hand. At first glance, the 1992 D penny might not seem rare. In fact, it is considered a common date with massive production numbers. However, rarity in coin collecting does not always mean low mintage. Sometimes, value comes from condition, errors, or unusual variations. That's where this coin begins to get interesting. Most 1992 D pennies you'll find are worth just 1 cent in everyday condition. But examples that have never been circulated, known as uncirculated coins, can be worth more to collectors. These coins show sharp details, bright original luster, and no wear from handling. In higher grades, especially those certified by professional grading services, the value can rise noticeably. A perfectly preserved example can sell for several dollars, sometimes more, depending on demand and condition. Even more intriguing are error coins. During the minting process, mistakes can happen. A die might be misaligned, a coin might be struck off-center, or the metal planchet could have flaws. Some 1992 D Lincoln pennies have been found with errors such as doubled letters, weak strikes, or unusual surface marks. While not all errors are valuable, certain clear and dramatic errors can attract strong interest from collectors who specialize in mint mistakes. Collectors often point to auction results to understand real-world value. Over the years, high-grade 1992 D pennies have appeared in coin auctions and online marketplaces. Coins graded at the top levels with flawless surfaces and strong strikes have sold for prices that surprise people who think all modern pennies are worthless. While these prices don't reach the levels of famous rarities, they show that even a modern coin can have collectible value when everything lines up just right. Identifying a genuine 1992 D Lincoln penny is fairly simple, but it's still important to know what to look for. First, check the date and the mint mark. The D should appear just below the date on the front of the coin. Next, examine the weight. A standard 1992 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Significant differences could indicate damage or alteration. Look closely at the design details. The lettering should be sharp, and Lincoln's portrait should have clear lines, especially around the hair and coat. Fake pennies are rare, but altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify common pennies to resemble rarer varieties. This can include adding or removing mint marks. Under magnification, these alterations often show tool marks, uneven surfaces, or incorrect placement. A real mint mark is cleanly struck and blends naturally with the surface of the coin. One surprising fact about the 1992 Lincoln penny is that this year is famous for another variation that collectors constantly search for, the 1992 Close AM variety. While this particular rarity is most often associated with pennies struck without a mint mark or with other mints, it has made collectors pay closer attention to all 1992 pennies, including those from Denver. This increased awareness has kept interest in the entire year's production alive. Another fun detail is how the penny reflects its time. In 1992, the penny still played a bigger role in daily transactions than it does today. Vending machines, payphones, and small purchases all relied on coins. The 1992 D penny likely passed through countless hands, pockets, and registers, quietly doing its job without anyone giving it a second thought. Collectors love the 1992 D Lincoln penny not because it's rare in the traditional sense, but because it represents a complete snapshot of modern American coinage. It combines a historic design, modern materials, and the massive scale of late 20th century minting. For new collectors, it's an affordable entry point. For experienced collectors, it's a challenge to find in top condition or with interesting errors. The Denver Mint itself adds another layer of interest. Coins from Denver are known for their strong strikes and consistent quality. For collectors who enjoy building complete sets, having a clean, well-preserved 1992 D penny is an important part of finishing a Lincoln cent collection that spans decades. As time passes, even common coins slowly disappear from circulation. They get lost, damaged, or thrown away. This means that truly pristine examples become harder to find with each passing year. That gradual change is one reason collectors continue to search through rolls, jars, and old collections, hoping to uncover a gem hiding in plain sight. So the next time you see a 1992 penny with a small D beneath the date, take a closer look. You might be holding a simple piece of pocket change, or you might be holding a tiny piece of American history that collectors still care deeply about. Sometimes, the real value of a coin isn't just in dollars, but in the story it tells and the curiosity it inspires. And that's the beauty of coins like the 1992 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny. They remind us that history doesn't always come in dramatic forms. Sometimes, it's hiding quietly in your change, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. Most people have held this coin in their hand and never gave it a second thought, yet some 2006 D Lincoln pennies have surprised collectors by selling for far more than 1 cent, and the reason why might be hiding in your pocket right now. The 2006 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck in the United States and marked with a small D beneath the date, showing it was produced at the Denver Mint. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary modern penny, the kind people spend every day without looking twice. But when you slow down and really examine this coin, you discover a story tied to American history, modern minting changes, and a handful of unexpected details that have made collectors pay attention. To understand this penny, we need to go back to the year 2006. America was well into the 21st century, and the Lincoln cent had already been part of everyday life for nearly 100 years. The design featuring Abraham Lincoln had first appeared in 1909 to honor his 100th birthday. By 2006, the Lincoln penny was one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history, trusted, familiar, and deeply connected to American identity. The U.S. Mint continued producing pennies to meet massive demand for daily commerce, and millions upon millions of them were struck that year. The Denver Mint, represented by the D Mint mark, played a major role in penny production in 2006. Its job was simple but enormous: strike high volumes of coins efficiently and accurately. Most of the time, that process went smoothly. But whenever millions of coins are produced, small variations, mistakes, and unusual details can slip through. And those small differences are exactly what collectors search for today. The 2006 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin outer coating of copper. This composition began in 1982, when rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to change how pennies were made. While older pennies feel heavier and solid, the 2006 penny is lighter and more fragile. That zinc core plays a major role in both the condition of the coin and the types of errors that can occur during minting. On the front of the coin, you'll see Lincoln's familiar portrait, facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" along the top and "Liberty" to the left. The date 2006 sits on the right, with the D Mint mark just below it. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly, a design introduced in 1959 and still used in 2006. Inside the memorial, if you look closely, you can even see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln, one of the most detailed miniature designs ever placed on a U.S. coin. So why would a modern penny like this ever be valuable? The answer lies in condition, rarity within varieties, and minting errors. Most 2006 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. But a small percentage stand out due to unusual features. Coins that were struck slightly off-center, coins with doubled lettering, or coins showing die cracks or die chips can attract serious collector interest. One of the most talked about varieties involves doubled die errors. These happen when the coin die receives a misaligned impression during its creation, causing certain letters or numbers to appear doubled. On some 2006 D pennies, collectors have reported light doubling on the date or lettering. While not extremely common, clear examples in excellent condition can sell for far more than face value. Another error collectors look for is improper metal bonding. Because these pennies are copper-plated zinc, the copper layer can sometimes blister, peel, or bubble. While damaged coins are usually worthless, genuine mint errors caused during production can be valuable. A 2006 D penny with intact mint luster and a clear plating error can catch a collector's eye quickly. Condition is everything. A circulated 2006 D penny that has been scratched, darkened, or worn down is usually worth 1 cent. But a coin in uncirculated condition, meaning it shows no wear and still has its original shine, can be worth significantly more. Some uncirculated examples graded by professional services have sold for several dollars, and in rare cases, high-grade coins have reached double-digit prices. There have been real auction results that surprised casual collectors. High-grade 2006 D pennies, especially those graded MS67 or higher, have sold at coin auctions and online marketplaces for anywhere from $20 to over $100, depending on demand and overall eye appeal. While these prices are not common, they prove that even a modern penny can become valuable under the right circumstances. Identifying a genuine 2006 D Lincoln penny is straightforward but requires attention to detail. First, check the date and the mint mark. The D should be clear and neatly struck beneath the year. Next, examine the weight. A standard 2006 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Significant differences may indicate damage or alteration. Look closely at the surface under good lighting. Genuine mint errors usually look natural and smooth, while fake or altered coins often show tool marks or unnatural scratches. Counterfeit pennies are rare, but altered coins do exist. Some people attempt to create fake errors by scratching or pressing coins. Real mint errors occur during the striking process and usually affect multiple design elements consistently. If something looks forced or uneven, it probably isn't a true error. One surprising fact about the 2006 D Lincoln penny is just how many were made. Over 2 billion were struck at the Denver Mint alone. That massive number explains why most are common, but it also makes high-grade survivors much rarer. Coins that escaped circulation and were stored carefully from the start are the ones collectors chase today. Another fun detail is that this penny represents the final years of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design. Just a few years later, the U.S. Mint would change the back of the penny to honor Lincoln's life in new ways, eventually replacing the memorial altogether. That makes the 2006 D penny part of the closing chapter of a long design era. Collectors love this coin because it is approachable. You don't need to be wealthy or experienced to search for one. Anyone can check pocket change, old jars, or inherited collections. The thrill comes from the possibility that something ordinary might turn out to be special. For many collectors, The 2006 Lincoln penny is also a reminder of why coin collecting is exciting. It proves that value isn't only about age. It's about history, condition, rarity within variations, and the stories behind how a coin was made. A penny struck in modern times can still capture attention, spark curiosity, and even bring unexpected rewards. Today, this coin holds a quiet place in the hobby. It isn't flashy or famous, but it invites people to look closer. It encourages learning, patience, and appreciation for detail. And sometimes, it rewards that attention in surprising ways. So the next time you see a penny dated 2006 with a small d beneath the year, don't dismiss it too quickly. Hold it up to the light. Look at the details. Think about where it came from and how many hands it may have passed through. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest coin can have a story worth far more than 1 cent. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now was struck during one of the most dramatic turning points in modern American coin history? A year when tradition, technology, and hidden surprises all collided. Today we're diving deep into the story of the 2018 Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people overlook, yet one that carries far more history and collector intrigue than its face value suggests. This coin is a 1-cent piece struck in 2018 with a Mint mark, meaning it was produced at the Denver facility of the United States Mint. At first glance, it looks like a regular modern penny, but when you slow down and really look at it, this coin represents more than just spare change. It marks the final year of a major chapter in American coinage. The Lincoln penny itself has a long and respected legacy. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By 2018, the Lincoln cent had already been part of American life for more than a century, passing through wars, economic booms, recessions, and technological revolutions. The year 2018 was especially important because it was the last full year before the U.S. Mint ended production of pennies for general circulation in some facilities and began rethinking long-term coin strategies. While pennies were still widely used, rising production costs and changing spending habits made every modern cent more meaningful to collectors who were paying attention. The Denver Mint, officially known as the Denver Mint, played a crucial role in meeting national demand in 2018. Millions of these Mint mark pennies were struck, yet not all of them are equal. Small variations, errors, and condition differences have created a quiet but real collector market around this coin. Let's talk about how this penny is made and what makes it unique. The 2018 Lincoln penny is composed of 97.5% zinc with a thin copper coating on the outside. This modern composition has been used since 1982, replacing the older solid copper pennies that are now so highly sought after. The coin weighs 2.5 grams and measures just under 20 millimeters in diameter. On the front of the coin, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design originally created by Victor David Brenner. Even after more than 100 years, Brenner's design remains one of the most recognized images in American currency. Lincoln faces right with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 2018 with the Mint mark just below it. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the Union Shield design, which was introduced in 2010. This shield represents Lincoln's preservation of the United States during the Civil War. The 13 vertical stripes symbolize the original colonies, bound together by a strong horizontal bar, reinforcing the idea of unity. For many collectors, this reverse design adds historical depth even to modern pennies. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 2018 pennies are worth just 1 cent, certain examples stand out because of minting errors. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the striking process, and even modern high-speed minting equipment isn't perfect. One of the most talked about errors on 2018 pennies is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank isn't properly aligned, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. Depending on how dramatic the error is, these coins can sell for anywhere from $20 to over $100. Another valuable error is the die crack or die break. As minting dies wear down, cracks can form, leaving raised lines or unusual shapes on the coin's surface. Some collectors love these imperfections because each one is unique, almost like a fingerprint of the minting process. There are also double die varieties, where parts of the design appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. On a 2018 D penny, doubling might be visible on Lincoln's eye, the date, or the lettering. Strong double dies can fetch prices far higher than normal circulation coins, especially in uncirculated condition. Condition plays a huge role in value. A worn 2018 D penny pulled from pocket change is usually worth face value. But a coin graded in mint state, especially MS67 or higher, becomes a completely different story. Professional grading services evaluate coins based on strike quality, surface preservation, and overall eye appeal. Some high-grade 2018 D pennies have sold at auction for prices ranging from $50 to over $200. While that may not sound life-changing, remember that this is a modern penny many people still ignore or spend without a second thought. So how can you tell if you have a real, valuable one? First, check the date and mint mark carefully. The D mint mark should be small and located just below the date. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the lettering, Lincoln's profile, and the edges of the coin. Look for doubling, cracks, or unusual marks that don't look like normal wear. Weight is another clue. A genuine 2018 penny should weigh around 2.5 grams. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, it could indicate damage, plating issues, or in rare cases, an experimental or error strike. Be cautious of fakes or altered coins. Some people attempt to add fake errors or modify coins to make them look rare. True mint errors usually appear raised and integrated into the metal, not scratched or carved into the surface. Here's a fun fact most people don't realize. Even though the penny costs more than 1 cent to produce, millions of Americans still collect them by date and mint mark. The 2018 D penny is often saved as part of complete modern Lincoln cent sets, especially because it represents the final years of traditional penny production. Another surprising detail is that many 2018 pennies were saved immediately by collectors in uncirculated condition. That means truly perfect examples are harder to find than you might expect, despite the high mintage numbers. Collectors love this coin today because it tells a quiet story. It's not about gold or silver. It's about the end of an era, modern manufacturing, and the idea that even everyday objects can hold hidden value if you know what to look for. The 2018 D Lincoln penny reminds us that rarity isn't always about age. Sometimes it's about timing, condition, and the small mistakes that slip through massive systems. For new collectors, this coin is affordable, accessible, and educational. For experienced collectors, it offers the thrill of hunting for errors and high-grade examples, so the next time you see a 2018 penny with a small D beneath the date, don't rush to spend it. Hold it, look at it closely, and remember that history doesn't always come in gold or silver. Sometimes it comes disguised as a single cent, waiting patiently for someone curious enough to notice its story. Most people would never look twice at a penny dated 2020. But what if I told you that one small detail on this coin could turn an ordinary cent into something collectors actively hunt for today, and sometimes pay surprising prices to own? This coin is the 2020 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a modern 1-cent coin produced in the United States and still quietly circulating in pockets, jars, and drawers. At first glance, it looks like just another penny you might get as change at a grocery store. But behind this everyday appearance is a story tied to American history, a global crisis, and a few small details that make this coin far more interesting than most people realize. The Lincoln penny has been part of American life for over a century. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By the time 2020 arrived, the Lincoln cent had already become the longest-running design in American coinage history, a familiar symbol of stability and tradition. The year 2020 itself is what gives this penny much of its historical importance. It was a year unlike any other in recent memory. As the world faced major disruptions, including widespread shutdowns and economic uncertainty, the United States Mint had to adapt quickly. Production schedules changed, staffing was reduced, and some facilities operated under strict limitations. Yet millions of 2020 pennies were still struck, quietly marking this extraordinary moment in history. The D Mint mark on this penny tells us exactly where it was made. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the most important minting facilities in the country. The Denver Mint has been producing coins for circulation since 1906, and its small D mint mark has become a familiar sign to collectors. On the 2020 Lincoln penny, that D appears just below the date on the front of the coin. The front, or obverse, of the 2020 D Lincoln penny features the well-known portrait of Abraham Lincoln, facing to the right. This design is based on the original artwork created by Victor David Brenner more than a century ago. While the portrait has been refined over time, Brenner's influence remains visible. Lincoln's calm expression, strong jawline, and dignified presence are all part of what makes this coin instantly recognizable. Flip the coin over, and you'll see a design that marks a relatively recent change in Lincoln penny history. Since 2010, the reverse has featured the Union Shield, symbolizing Lincoln's role in preserving the United States during the Civil War. The shield includes 13 vertical stripes, representing the original states, bound together by a horizontal bar across the top. Above the shield is the phrase E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, a message that feels especially meaningful when attached to a coin from the year 2020. In terms of metal, the 2020 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition has been used since 1982 and keeps production costs low. While it does not contain precious metals, collectors know that value is not always about what a coin is made of. Sometimes it's about timing, condition, and unusual characteristics. This is where the 2020 D penny begins to stand out. While billions of pennies are produced every year, not all of them are created equal. Coins struck during periods of disruption often show higher rates of small errors and variations. In 2020, the unusual working conditions at U.S. Mint facilities increased the chances of mistakes slipping through unnoticed. Some 2020 D Lincoln pennies have been found with striking errors that collectors actively seek. These include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned, weak strikes, where details appear faded, and die cracks, which look like thin raised lines caused by worn or damaged dies. There are also reported examples of missing or partially filled letters, especially in the word Liberty or in the date. Another point of interest is condition. Most 2020 D pennies entered circulation immediately, where they picked up scratches, stains, and wear. Finding one in pristine condition today is harder than it sounds. Coins that never entered circulation, often called uncirculated coins, can look dramatically different, with bright surfaces and sharp details that catch the light. So why would anyone pay real money for a modern penny? The answer lies in grading and scarcity at the highest levels. Professional coin grading services evaluate coins on a scale, with the highest grades reserved for nearly perfect examples. A 2020 D Lincoln penny that earns a top-grade score can sell for far more than 1 cent, sometimes reaching tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on demand and condition. There have already been auction results that surprised casual observers. High-grade 2020 D pennies, especially those with strong strikes and clean surfaces, have sold online for prices that make people stop and rethink the idea that modern coins are worthless. Error coins from this year can command even higher premiums, especially if the error is dramatic and clearly visible. Identifying a genuine 2020 D Lincoln penny is straightforward, but knowing what to look for is important. Start with the date. It should clearly read 2020, with even spacing and clean numbers. Just below the date, look for the small D mint mark. On authentic coins, this mint mark is sharp and well-defined, not blurry or oversized. Check the weight and feel of the coin. A genuine 2020 penny should feel light and consistent with other modern cents. While counterfeit pennies are rare due to the low face value, altered coins do exist. Some people attempt to add or change mint marks to create the illusion of rarity. Under magnification, these altered mint marks often look rough or incorrectly shaped. Using a simple magnifying glass can help you spot potential errors or unusual features. Look closely at Lincoln's face, the lettering, and the edges of the coin. Any doubling, cracks, or missing details should be examined carefully, as these may add value. However, damage from circulation, such as scratches or dents, usually does not increase worth. One fun fact about the 2020 D Lincoln penny is that it represents a coin minted during a global event that affected nearly every aspect of daily life. Future collectors may view coins from this year as historical artifacts, small metal reminders of a time when the world slowed down. In that sense, even common examples carry a story that earlier or later pennies do not. Another surprising detail is how many people unknowingly spend potentially valuable coins. A high-grade or error penny can easily be lost in everyday transactions because it looks so ordinary. Many collectors enjoy searching rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to find a standout example hiding in plain sight. Collectors today love the 2020 Lincoln penny because it sits at the crossroads of history and modern coinage. It is old enough to represent a significant moment, yet new enough to still be accessible. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start collecting these coins. Sometimes all it takes is careful attention and patience. For new collectors, this penny is also a great learning tool. It teaches how mint marks work, how condition affects value, and how even small details can matter. For experienced collectors, it offers the thrill of the hunt, especially when searching for top-grade or error examples that stand out from the rest as time passes. Fewer pristine 2020 pennies will remain. Coins get scratched, lost, or melted, and the best examples slowly disappear into private collections. That gradual loss is what can turn today's common coin into tomorrow's desirable collectible, so the next time you see a 2020 penny with a small D beneath the date, don't dismiss it too quickly. Hold it up to the light. Look closely at its details. You might be holding a tiny piece of modern American history, one that quietly tells a story of resilience, change, and the surprising value hidden in the smallest places. And once you start noticing that, you may never look at your spare change the same way again.